blank frame, and I will just start my frame and go from there. You're going to want the frames to always be 900 or 1200. I usually do
I I
1200.
hate I hate to do this,
Yeah.
but I thought I pressed go live and we didn't go live. It's embarrassing.
What? How did the people know that we were live then?
They were commenting. It sounds like they were commenting under the how you call it, as a waiting screen. So they were waiting, but they didn't see it. So some of them are like left.
Okay,
Oh, no.
interesting. So we're going live
Yeah,
again, I guess, right?
yeah. So let's hide Kristen.
From the very top, Kristen, go back.
We do apologize, people. We were talking about email design already for 11 minutes, and
For
I
like, yeah.
realized that I didn't press go live. So as you can see, like streaming is something new at Flowium. So Vera, please start.
Let's
Introduce our
do
guest.
this again. Yay. So, you guys, hello again. It's Vera and Andre here, joined by a very special guest, our head designer, Kristen Muslow. So, today we have Kristen with us to share her process, honestly, to share her process of how she creates an emails to make them both look visually stunning. Because, hey, have you seen our emails? They are amazing, but also functional. So, today she will show her tricks on how to create these emails, share her processes, and yeah, grab coffee, get comfy, and let's dive into the world of email marketing design today together with Kristen, Andre, and me. Kristen, hello again.
Kristen,
Hey,
hey,
guys. Long time.
Long time.
welcome.
Yes. We were like literally talking to you for like 11 minutes straight about email designs. Well, anyways, nice to have you back, Kristen.
Nice to be here.
Yeah. So tell us more about what we will be doing today on this call.
Yeah, so today we're going to be going over kind of my process for designing a welcome email. We're going to be going over one of our clients. They're called Swoon. They sell delicious beverages, non-alcoholic, sugar-free, gut-healthy beverages, and they actually just went through a rebrand. So we got to redo their welcome flow and kind of bring some really fun elements into it. Their style is really bold and really bright, so I'm excited to show you their design and then kind of the process that goes behind it and some of my favorite tools that I use to do that.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
why we do this since 2017 when the company where YouTube channel was started, the most popular topic was email design. Back then I didn't realize the difference between graphic design and email design, and then I found out when I spoke with few designers internally, I realized that yes, email design is a part of graphic design, but when you design emails, there's t- tricks and techniques you need to follow to make the emails not only beautiful but make sure it goes to in the inbox, it's rendered correctly, it's mobile responsive, it's responding good to the black mode, dark mode, sorry, not to the dark mode. So it's very important. That's why we doing this workshop today. So Kristen,
Right.
please start.
Yeah,
The
definitely.
floor is yours.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I was a graphic designer for years and years before this, but email design was new for me when I started here, and it's really fun. It's like its own can of worms. It has its own challenges that other things don't. So yeah, I really love it, and it's definitely its own skill set. So I'm excited to go over that today. I will share my screen here. And then just so you guys know, when I share my screen, I can't see you guys or the questions. So feel free to interrupt me at any time and just flag me down, and we can go over any questions that come up. So I will share my
Yes, let's
screen
do
now.
this.
Think you unshared. So can you share it one more time, please? Yeah. Okay, perfect.
Okay. Can you guys see my Figma?
Yes, we see it and we love it already. Wow, it's so bold and bright. I love it.
Thank
And
you.
Kristen, before we start, like going over the email and how you design it and how you slice it, how you move to ESPs, what general tools, what tools do you typically use?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We're actually going to go over a lot of them today, but just an overview for some of the ones that I use on a daily basis. So I used to be an Adobe only designer. That's how I learned. I loved it. You can do so many cool things with Adobe. However, I personally think that Figma works better for email design. And it is much friendlier to my computer. So I love Figma. I'm a huge proprietor of that. I think it's one of the best tools that we have out there right now. So Figma, of course, and then I will be quality testing these using Email on Acid, which designers either love it or hate it. I think it's a really awesome tool. I think it's great that we have access to it. So Email on Acid is going to check things like dark mode and mobile optimizations. So that's another really, maybe the most important tool, honestly, outside of the actual software we use to design. I think that might be the most important one. And then also I like to use websites like EasyGIF and background.bg to remove backgrounds quickly, to quickly make GIFs, things you can do in Adobe, but they're just a click of a button on these websites. So it just keeps the processes flowing and saves you some time. So those are some of my favorite.
Nice.
Thank you.
Let's do this. I love that you have this email, like the entire product, and you have like the little slices. So
Yeah.
Explain your process, Kristen. It's very interesting.
Thanks. Yeah, I wanted to show a couple different ways to do this because, of course, as designers, we all have our own ways to get to that final product. So I will be going over two kind of ways to approach this from Figma, but this really does work universally if you're using Adobe or Canva or something else. So here at Flowium, we get a beautiful copy document from our copy team. And so they have all of this writing in here because that's not my forte. I'm here to make it look nice, and they're here to make it sound nice. So we get that copy document, and then we kind of just take it from there. So once I see what is actually going to be in the campaign, that's kind of how I decide how I'm going to design it, because not all campaigns have everything in them, you know? And so some are going to have a code, some are going to have product blocks, others are going to have CTAs in certain areas. So once I know exactly what's going into the email, that's whenever I really get the kind of creative juices flowing. So I start there, and then I'll review past work of the client just to kind of see where they're at, what they've been doing, if anything has been working better for them. So I take that information, and then I take their branding, which for this client, it happens to be all new branding. And then with those three things, I kind of just get started here. Do you have any questions on that process?
No, but just like by looking at your design, even at that like very first screenshot, I love that you have like CTA, that first CTA button in the first sort of like part of the screen. That's like a mistake that I'm seeing very often, even with like big brands. Sometimes they have this like beautiful hero image with like no CTA whatsoever. Or to see the click call to action button, you have to actually scroll, especially on like mobile device. And that's like annoying. And I bet that your click-through rates are like lower because of that. And I do really love that you have the first call to action very prominent on top of the email with a CTA button right away.
Kristen, is the text like zero sugar, 100% tasty, is it like responsive or it's a part of the image?
So this is actually a GIF. So what I did here, so this is the hero image, you know, like that whole purple block. But what I did is I split it in half. So the top is going to be a GIF, and I have all three stages of the GIF over here. So you can kind of see what those look like. And then I split the bottom half to be kind of the CTA/image.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, and then I'll toggle over to Klaviyo. Can you guys see my Klaviyo screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. So I just kind of wanted to show you a little bit of the reasoning behind why I split this. So one idea is just size. The smaller the GIF, the smaller the file size, and the easier it is to load on people's computers or phones. So that's obviously the one reasoning behind it. But then the other reasoning behind it is the CTA. So as you all know, or you should know, every image, GIF, PNG, JPEG needs to have alt text and alt links. That is super, super important. Always do that every single time. So for this one, I wanted the shop now to have its own alt text as a CTA because it's not an actual button. It is an image. So I wanted to have that. As you can see, the alt text for this is shop now, but the alt text for the first one is the headline. So the 0G sugar. So that's kind of why I split that.
What is alt text and like why it's important? Like, can we just leave it links?
Yeah, no, for sure. That's a great question. So for alt text and links, links is pretty self-explanatory. You want your email to be clickable. You want people to get your email and go somewhere and hopefully purchase something or sign up for whatever you want them to. So that's one reason. But the alt text is really important for accessibility. Not everybody has the ability to read off the screen, whether they are blind or maybe they have color blindness. There's so many different reasons people might not be able to open up their email like you or I and see
Or
what's
they have Outlook. Sorry, I had to add it. Very often people, no, but seriously, very
Come
often
on.
people
And
who
we
use some certain email providers,
like
they see it
Outlook.
as a text only. I mean, it's a settings, but you can even
Okay,
check
okay.
it.
If you're listening us live, please let us know if you do love doing email design in Outlook. Yes or no?
I'd love to know if anyone out there
Yeah.
does.
I know it's a big issue for email designers to make it work for Outlook.
Yeah, everyone else is cool except
Yeah.
for Outlook. It's like that problem child, you know.
It really is.
Actually, there's Kristen, there's a good question here.
Yeah.
When we add GIFs and images, does it make the email more like heavier? Because for I know it's an issue for Gmail clipping.
Yeah, definitely. So it could definitely be an issue for clipping. So one thing that's really nice about Klaviyo, for example, they won't let you upload a GIF that is too big. So you might have to optimize it using something like EasyGIF. But yeah, so definitely it's nice that Klaviyo won't let you upload a huge GIF that's gonna not load. So that's one fallback. Another one is if you go up here to preview and test, you can see up here in a second once it loads the email size. And this one is way under. So that's not even something that I would look at right now. It's 60 KB. It needs to be, under 90-ish. And if this were closer to 90, I would probably look into the GIF and see if I can maybe optimize it or make it smaller. But since this email is at such a great weight, that's not something that we would have to worry about at all. This email shouldn't get clipped.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Alrighty, so that's kind of the hero image and how I split it up. And then I'm going to go back over here to Figma. So you can see that I have these separate artboards for all three parts of the hero image. But another way you could take your design from Figma and slice it is to go over here. And I actually have this sliced up. So can you guys now see the little slices on this email?
Yes.
Yes, but my question, like, why do you slice those three pieces versus just do one image? Is because it's like much easier and faster, probably.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's a good question. So that is going back to, again, the alt text and the link, and again, just the size. So if this was one full image, my GIF might be too big to upload, and then I would have to just slice it anyway. And this is so I can have that separate alt text. So this bottom one I can treat as a CTA. So whenever someone who maybe can't view the image, they won't just see the headline, they'll see the headline and they'll see the text for the CTA. So it's just to make sure nobody misses out on any of those important elements.
Okay, makes sense.
Yes, and then going back over here, you can see that I opted to do this, but one thing that I wanted to make sure I went over is PNGs for dark mode. So the background on this is pink, but you're not going to want to export this with, let's see here, with a pink background or any background at all. So this is really what this would look like if you're just looking at this section on its own when you're viewing the email. However, we want to utilize what's already in the ESP because we want to make it as organic and functional as possible. So instead of having this pink background, which on dark mode won't switch, I want to get rid of that background. So I'm just going to hide it. And then when I export this, this is going to be just blank. So I'll actually show you real quick. You just click this export. And then you can see here, I'll go into this crop tool so I can see the background is not pink. The background is that dark color. So that way, if we do send it to Outlook or somewhere a little funky and color switches happen, we don't have to worry about the email looking unnatural. We want it to still flow. We don't want any harsh blocks that aren't supposed to be there. And then that actually takes me into email on acid. So I'm going to pop in here real quick. See if this loads. And scroll down to web just so we can get kind of a bigger view. I'll give that a second to load while I'll come back over here.
Okay, so hold on. So I just want to follow the process. So when you export, do you export entire email as an image and upload it to email on acid, or you build it in ESP, in this case it's Klaviyo, and you send it to email on acid? So what is the process?
Yeah, for sure. So I will build the whole email out visually, and then I'll pick the slices or the smaller elements. So on here, you can see full image on the left, and then all the smaller elements are over here on the right. So what I'll do is I will do all of that first before building it in the ESP. And that's just my process. I know some people like to build as they go. But for me, I just like to visualize how it's going to look all together and then move it into the ESP piece by piece. So the reason I kind of do that is so we can utilize as many elements within the ESP as possible. So of course I could just, export this whole thing as a PNG and upload it. However, that's not going to be optimal for delivery. So anytime you want to mix in live text, buttons, anything that is organic to the ESP. So you can see here, I'll kind of just go through this email from top to bottom, actually. I think that'll make the most sense. So this hero image, as we already went over, it is a GIF and a PNG. So that's sliced. That's kind of the top part. And then we have this lovely copy here. You can see we have the first name with their default here, which is really important. I'll actually preview to show you guys what that does in case anyone out there doesn't know. So it pulls my name, which is really nice. And then if you go back in here, you can see that if they don't have somebody's name, it'll go to their fallback name of Bestie. So this is all live text.
Sorry for the interruption, but it's extremely important, even if you create a design or you provide service or you do it for your brand, to have a fallback value. And I believe on YouTube, I'll drop it in the comments below, but we have how to set up that fallback value. It's important for personalization. So instead of saying, hi, space, comma, and text, you put either hi Vera or hi, if you don't have their first name, you put hi Bestie or any fallback value which relevant to your brand.
Yeah, no, thank you, Andre. That's super important. And every ESP is slightly different on how they do this, but it's as easy as a Google search if you don't know. If the team you're working with doesn't already have that figured out, let's say I'm working in MailChimp instead, it's going to be slightly different, but it's all out there. It's a quick Google search, but yeah, it's super important. And I think it's just cool when you get an email that says your name. I don't know, it catches my eye a little bit more for sure.
True.
Yeah, so I already did the live text here and then this code here. So this is really nice. It's, I don't know, I guess a debate. Some people don't mind when codes are in PNGs, but I like to make codes live text when I can. So whenever you get the email, you can copy the code right from the email. You can't always make that work, but that's just kind of a side note, is to make codes copyable whenever you can, just to make it easier for the person, because that's really the goal, is to make it as easy for them to do, to complete the goal,
Yeah, and it's especially important in the flows, and this email is specifically the flow email, because very often we use the dynamic discount codes, right?
Yeah.
The code that is like unique to every customer, that is expirable. That's why we make them text based. But like going back to your live text, Kristen, I see a lot of brands, even like the big brands, are doing this like beautiful image based emails. Why do you prefer to do it as a text? Like apart from that, like text being copyable, like why do you prefer live text versus just like an image based text?
For sure. So live text, for one, it does help with deliverability. So it makes it look less like spam for maybe somebody who you're not used to sending to or stuff like that. So that's kind of the one-off answer. But it's also good because it is more responsive than like a PNG would be. So you can see here, this is desktop, but whenever I switch to mobile, it switches for me. This is a new thing with Klaviyo. I don't know why it does that. Okay. So you can see that it responds. And so it will shrink it down. It will adjust for you in your screen size. And then like maybe something like this, the words are a little bit smaller and they don't adjust automatically. So that's why I really like utilizing live text. And it also helps for like dark mode and stuff like that, because it will all change together. But yeah, that's why I like live text.
And also sometimes images are not loaded, especially in inbox providers like Outlook. So maybe you don't see images, but the important copy is there. So
yeah,
it's another reason.
A lot of brands are against this live text because they use like special fonts that are not standard Google fonts or something, and they want the text to look good on different devices. What's your sort of like process here? If the brand has a specific font that they want to use, but it won't look good, for example, on Outlook, what's your process?
Oh, Outlook. No, that's a really great question. So at least here at Flowium, we always make sure that we have a fallback font. So there are some system fonts that just live in your computer and they're going to work on almost all email providers. So that's one thing, is we always make sure we have a fallback font, but some of these fonts are a little funkier and they really do work with the design. So we want to make sure that they're in that design. So that's when down here, you could see this is just standalone text at the top. So you would think like, why would that not be live text? And it's because this does not render great on all computers. And the fallback font for this, it'll mess up the spacing. It could click one of the words to the next line. So whenever I have something like that, I just use PNGs for headlines and stuff like that.
Nice.
Nice. Yeah, especially whenever it's so important to the brand, like Swoon, their font really is part of the brand. So that's something to keep an eye on, but that's a really good question.
Kristen, there's another question from Instagram coming. What is the width of this email? Is it a 486? It looks like 600, but I might be wrong.
The width, I believe this is 900. I think that's like, if I have a GIF, I need to make sure the width is at least 900 or it will be smaller than the screen. So minimum 900, and then I never design bigger than 1200 wide.
Really? Can you go to styles? I'm just curious, like, isn't it?
Okay, so it says the width for this is 600, so half of it.
I think the default, maybe you design it as a 900, but I know that Klaviyo's default is 600 unless you change it. And some brands do this like luxury jewelry brand One Cleef. I don't know why, but their emails look like, I don't know, 150. Like, so weird to me why, but their email's the weirdest one that I see on the market.
Interesting. Yeah, I've noticed more brands using this kind of background behind the email as part of their design. I haven't really done that a lot in my career, but I know because you can change this background color to be whatever you want. So I've seen people kind of using that to extend their design past the screen size, which is really creative. But yeah, I haven't done that yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Alrighty. So then moving down in the email design, this next block, if you can see here how there's two sections. If you preview it, it will look like one PNG, but I'm going to go through why I have it split up. So this looks like it's just one image, but really it is two. So the reason for that is one of the parts of the rebrand was color blocking. So they wanted to have more of these like harsh color blocks. So harsh in a good way, just like very eye-catching and blunt. So that is what I did here. But because I don't want to have to make the background of this pink, I want to use, again, the ESP to be able to do that. You can see this image actually has no background, but it looks like it has a pink background. And that is, again, for dark mode optimizations. So if I go over here, you can see I have this split. I wouldn't export this with the pink. I would hide it. And then I would also hide this. And that's kind of how I get these two sections. And then uploading them separately, I can give them different background colors. So this section is going to have purple background, and this one's going to have pink. And this one PNG is kind of the catalyst to divide that.
Nice.
Yes, and that's just kind of a Klaviyo tips and trick that I learned after becoming an email designer versus just a normal graphic designer. And then moving down into the email, you can see that we also really wanted to highlight the products, because not only did they rebrand, they also redid all of their beautiful cans here. So we made sure to work in their new lifestyle image up here in the hero, and then their new product down here. Again, especially because this is a welcome email, we really want people to know who Swoon is and why they're getting this email. So this image here, we already kind of went over the text and why this is a PNG and not live text. But I also wanted to show you again, there is no background color, but you will notice that Meet Your New BBF has an outline. So I'm going to kind of go into why you would do something like that. So let me find email on Acid. Okay, so we never know how things are going to switch on email on Acid. We can kind of guess, like we have an idea of how colors are going to change, but sometimes there's no rhyme or reason, so you have to really be prepared for whatever Outlook decides to do, or whoever. So on this, which is actually Outlook, which is kind of funny, you can see that they made this light purple instead of making it black, which you probably wouldn't see the purple on. They made it a dark purple for some reason. So I made sure that I have this outline around this just so there's no confusion.
Interesting.
This is
Wait,
nice.
I don't understand. Where do you add that outline? Like in the in the file itself, or?
Yes. So you can
Oh,
see
okay, okay,
here,
okay.
it's actually
Uh-huh.
outlined, and they make it super easy to do over here, just adding a stroke on Figma. But yeah,
Nice.
like looking at the full email, you wouldn't really know that's there, but that's just one of those little tips and tricks that you learn the more you design for email and check for quality
So
control.
basically that outline is like blends in with your original design, but
Yes.
Mhm.
if it's changed the color, you are able to see the, I don't
Yeah,
know.
you're still able to read.
Hmm.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
and
nice.
that's
And
something.
is it for black mode? Um, it's a, you're doing this for black mode and any other colors?
I use this, yeah, just for dark mode, and I didn't see any other areas where I thought that would be an issue, so I only did it to here. But that's just something that, when in doubt, add a stroke. It's never going to hurt
Mhm.
anything. And depending on how dark mode switches your design, you want people to be able to still read it. And again, that's why alt text is important, because then the words are still there even if they're hard to read. But yeah, so that's why you would add a stroke.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One weird thing I've noticed was a dark mode for some of the emails that we worked on. Whenever you add like a background to the text,
Hmm.
not just like the color, but you actually add like an image as a background for the live text. Then in dark mode, it makes always the text white, even if
Hmm.
your like the image of the background is like light color. So we
Yeah.
had to play with it a little bit for one of our clients because they were like adamant on having that specific background for the emails. So
Yeah. We have definitely run into that a couple times, again, because dark mode just does whatever it wants.
mhm.
But luckily, there are some ways to get around things like that. So we have a lot of designers that are great with code. So you can go into the code and tweak it a little bit. But yeah, using backgrounds for live text areas is a very
Mhm.
unique feature that I think only Klaviyo has right now. So I didn't use that in this presentation just because Klaviyo is really the only one that does it. I know you can't do it in MailChimp or Omnisend or anything like that yet. So, and it's imperfect. Like you said, there are some tweaks to it,
Yeah.
but it's a really cool feature. I've seen it work out well sometimes.
Yeah, it's very unpredictable though. You like literally don't know how it's gonna act on different devices and on different platforms. So it's like super
Exactly.
unpredictable. Hmm.
Yeah, especially for ones like this that have so many colors. Like, let's say this
Right.
background was white, we have a pretty good idea of how it's going to switch, But whenever there are these fun colors, like it's just kind of a shot in the dark. And again, that's why
Hmm.
programs like Email and Asset are so nice and just so useful for us. And I don't even think we went over this, but it does go over how it will switch on different screens too. So I've kind of been on the desktop version just so you can see kind of a bigger view. But if you scroll up, it also will show you the mobile version. So this is really, really good for things like text orphans. So that way, if you can see if one word will go onto a line by itself, which is what a text orphan is for anyone that doesn't know, you can adjust the padding. I know when I say that, it always sounds like, huh. Now saying it
Yep.
so often, it doesn't sound weird, but for someone who doesn't, it might be like, what is that? So yeah, a text orphan
Right.
is whenever a word, I'm sorry, gets bumped onto
Hmm.
the next line, and then it's lonely and it's all by itself. And of course, it still works, but it doesn't look as nice. And of course, that's our job here. So it is really cool. You can go on here, and it might not be perfect on every single screen because, like, that's just, almost impossible to do. But we try to make it look as good as we can on as many screens as possible, especially the more popular ones. Like you can see, like on iPhones, most people have iPhones, so we want it to look good on iPhones. But yeah,
And we
so
just lost half of our audience,
oh
the
no.
Android users. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh, I was like, what did I say? Oh my
Because
gosh.
you said most people use iPhone. Is it true?
Uh,
In the States, probably.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say maybe that's just me showing where I am here. Most people here do. Listen, I tried. I tried to get on the Android train, and I lasted like a month.
Nah.
Um,
Oh,
Kristen, is it possible? I'm extremely curious. I'm not sure how long will it take, but is it possible to rebuild the email in Klaviyo from Figma? I'm curious how do you export and what do you export? Like start from like blank canvas in Klaviyo and kind of start, yeah, like create new campaign or new file and start adding those things, or it will
yeah.
take long.
That might take a while, but I could go through kind of element by element if that's okay. Like this hero image, we could totally make this right now. And I think that would probably give a good idea if that's okay.
Okay. Okay, sure.
Yeah, let's do this.
So I kind of prepared for this. So over here, you can see these are some of the elements that I have in this hero image. So I'm just going to drag them over here. Usually I would start with a different artboard here. So I would have one just ready to go, but I will make one here, adding a frame. And this, I'll double check the size over here. I like to design at 1200 just so I can have like the highest quality, but I would just need it to be 600, 900, or 1200, but I like to do 1200 personally. So let me.
No, sorry, maybe I didn't explain correctly. I meant that the ready file that you already have,
Yeah.
the design you already have. How do you export? I'm curious. How do you export import inside of Klaviyo and building in Klaviyo, like piece by piece?
Yeah, no, I got you. Okay, so I usually, like I said, will use slices, but I like to put the elements over here on their own just for presentation purposes. So it totally depends on how you like it. For example, instead of clicking this and exporting this whole artboard, I could just export this little slice, but I'm going to do the artboards because I think that's a cleaner way to do it and just for presentation purposes. So I will go up here and I'll click the entire artboard and then export, which is at the very bottom. And then I always preview to make sure what I'm exporting is what I want to export. So export logo, it goes right into my downloads. And then over here, I will just delete this for now. So over here, and then in this section, I know it's going to be an image. And then I will browse my library. I go to upload image here. And then in my downloads, it'll be the first one here. And then I just drag it. It goes in. And then alt text and link address. So Swoon logo. And then I know that this would be the CTA because this is just their, I'm sorry, not CTA, the link, because that's just their website. So that's how I would do just a normal image like that. However, something like this could need padding on the side. So that might be a little bit different. So let me go over something like that really quick. So right now, let's see if I can do this without messing it up too much. I have the padding kind of built into the design right now, but I'll show you what it would look like if I didn't. So export. Okay.
Hold on, Kristen. Sorry, I missed the export piece because maybe it's not visible on our screen. So you click on the okay here, and where did you click export?
Down here in the bottom right-hand corner. Are you guys able to see that?
Yeah, I can see.
So when you click there, it because we don't see it doesn't show on our screen.
Oh, it doesn't show the downloads.
Yeah. So when you click there, it's like Windows pops up, and you just pick where to save the file. Correct?
Yeah, it goes right into your downloads on your computer.
Perfect. Okay, just want to.
Yeah, sorry, I never know what actually is sharing on the screen or not. But yeah, so when you click that download, it'll go right down there. And then I just drag and drop right from my downloads right into the image. But now you can see this is way too big. So I can add a padding onto this, and that's going to just adjust it to make it the same width as the other one. And then it's also really responsive on mobile.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's kind of two different ways. You can either export it with this kind of area on the edge in your PNG, or you can export it tight and add a padding. So that's kind of personal preference there.
Which one is like more responsive? What's your go-to method?
It kind of depends. If this were kind of smaller or had smaller elements, I would 100% do this way that has nothing on the edges, and that way I can fully control how big it's going to be on desktop and mobile. But since these are very big icons, I think that they're fine with the extra padding worked into the PNG. But it is more responsive without any extra space and only padding. So a lot of people will say they like padding most.
Okay. So when you build, so you already have the design ready inside of ESP Klaviyo, in this case Klaviyo. What's next? How do you test it on the email on asset? Do you send it to some specific email, or you export the HTML file?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So the way we have it set up is if you go into the upper right-hand corner, that's for Klaviyo, but every ESP I've ever worked in has some kind of variation of this. So you go to preview and test. I wait for it to load a second. I kind of just do a quick scroll. I go to the mobile version on here. preview it just to make sure, well, I'd have to fix that, just to make sure that nothing too crazy is happening. But then up here on send test, this is whenever you sign up for email on Acid, they will give you an email address, and that email address is like an @previews.emailonacid.com. So you just send it to that email address as if you were sending it to yourself to test. So I have it saved in here, and then you just click send, and then it'll
Okay.
take just a second.
Yeah, and also on email on Acid, they receive it and like they render it, correct?
Yes, let's see if this makes me use a code. Ha. So now that I sent it to email on Acid, it already popped up here. So you can see from the whole team, they pop up here, but I know this one is for me. So then I just click right into it, and then it'll bring us right back to that screen that we were just on with all the different variations. So it's really, really nice how they talk to each other. I know other times, like I've heard people saying they had to send it to themselves and then forward it to a different place. And it's like, this makes it so much easier, which is really nice.
Does it show when email clips on email on Acid, or it does not?
I don't believe it does. So a lot of the times what we'll do here at Flowium is we will also send it to our Gmail, because a lot of the times Gmail is going to be a good indicator of that. So we just type in our name instead, and we'll send it to our own. And then if there's an issue, but again, since I see this email weight is so low, that's not something I'm worried about at all. But let's say maybe a client has had issues with clipping in the past or something like that, then that's something that we should just check every time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And kind of down here at the bottom, you can see that I actually worked in a little bit more live text and a live button. So live buttons, I don't really know, honestly, if there's that big of a benefit to using a live button versus a PNG button in an image, kind of how it is up here in the hero image. But I really, again, like to work in the native elements of the ESP just to make it look more legit, and so it doesn't get flagged in different inboxes. So you can see that down here, instead of it being in the image, I used a Klaviyo button, which is just one of the great tools over here. I usually have them saved as universal blocks, but let's say you did not. You can just add a button here and then format it however you would like it. So let's see if I would just use their branding.
Yeah, I love live buttons because sometimes we need to like edit them, and it's like so much easier than sending it back to the designer, requesting all of these updates and going through the process.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's another thing that's really good about live elements is they're easily editable, editable, excuse me. So whether that's product blocks or anything like that, it is nice because someone else on the team can edit it quickly. You don't have to go into your working file or anything like that. So yeah, that's a great point. That's another reason why it's nice to use elements that are native.
And I absolutely love the footer that you've created, like the social media footer. It's amazing. Love
Thank
it.
you.
Love it.
This, I actually have to give credit to Jana. Hey, Jana. She is one of our template designers. So she does a lot of these, and she makes the coolest footers. Like, it's totally worth scrolling to the bottom of the email to see,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is the main goal of we don't have all the details of the Yahoo Gmail algorithm, but the rumors is that if you scroll the email, it's considered as an engagement as well for their algorithm, which improves your deliverability. But again, it's rumors. We don't know 100%. But it's better if people scroll versus not.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, and then let me go over here. So that's kind of how I export the elements. This one is the same way. I want to make sure that I'm exporting not with this background. And that's because, let's go back here to email on Acid. You see, let me get to one where the purple changed. Here. So you can see here how this whole background changed. But if I had this small PNG with that light purple background, it would look kind of weird on dark mode. There would be an interruption of the flow, and like your brain would kind of stop and be like, oh, like what's happening? So that's why it's really important to be mindful of what backgrounds you're using on your PNGs.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions, kind of how this happened or anything?
No, I mean, this looks amazing and it's functional. And I like that it's like, it flows, right? You almost like want to scroll to the bottom.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that you have like CTA at the top. It's almost like that triangle kind of like situation
Yeah.
that you guys use often. Can you like briefly explain that like hierarchy of email elements that you guys are using?
Yeah, for sure. So that's something you'll always hear as a designer. So we either reference kind of a Z pattern on where our eyes go or the triangle pattern. So with the
Let's do
triangle,
triangle one, please.
yeah.
Yes.
So for the
Because
triangle,
we have a
Like,
personal rejection for letter Z, me and Vera. So let's go
yes,
with
interesting.
the triangle.
We'll have to talk about that later because I'm curious.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
but the triangle one is what we really focus on anyway. So that's just as you would think, having a hierarchy that leads you to where, or leads the customer where you want them to go. So
Mhm.
for this, you can make the whole thing a triangle. There can be multiple triangles in your design. So I'll go through a little bit of that now. So for this
Mhm.
hero image, you can see the bold, bright, colorful GIF headline, and then it kind of goes down and gets skinnier to this shop now.
It's
And
like
then there's an
literally
image.
it's like a pyramid upside down in this case. I
Exactly.
love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Um, yeah, this one is more, you can see that they wanted more bolder, bright, big elements. So it's more so the same size, but it still kind of has that leading to your eye. So starts big, you get down to the shop now. It opens up again for all this live text, and then it gets smaller into the code, into some of these images, and way back down to the bottom of the triangle where you'll find your second CTA here. But yeah, it's kind of just how people's brains work and how we like to look at things. And you don't really need to be a graphic designer to understand it because, I mean, next time you get an email in your inbox, just try to be mindful of where your eyes go first. And it's really interesting. There's a little bit of psychology behind it.
And can you please scroll to the bottom? I want to point one thing that I learned back in the days.
Yeah.
No, scroll to the bottom, like to the, yeah. So there's a lot of text here, and you think like, hey, why do you need to include so much copy? You can simply put legally here in US by Can Spam Act, you need to include the physical address and unsubscribe option. So you can simply put one line and be done. However, you can capitalize on this real estate in your email and convince retell who you are, what is your like mission statement, what is your goal with the brand, and like give them option, of course, to manage preference to unsubscribe, but try to convince them to stay with your brand because they subscribe in the first place. And with that copy, be creative and convince them kind of to stay for longer. We have one question, and I'll try to bring it to the screen. Are you able to see it on the screen?
No, I think I can unshare
Oh,
that.
okay, okay. No, no, you're good.
Okay.
So, what do you think are the top five don'ts, no nos in designing emails?
Ooh, top five. All right, let's see if I can think of five. So let's see. Functionality, usually in graphic design, that's not what's most important, but in email design, that is most important. So I guess instead of a no-no, it's kind of a yes, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, you always want to worry about functionality first whenever it comes to email designing.
Mhm.
So that's kind of my top tip, I guess. Let's see, another no-no would be to use JPEGs. So actually, that's a really good thing. So right here, you can see my Figma screen again.
Mhm.
All right, and so right here, you can see that it's being exported as a PNG, and you can see the PNG squares down here, so you know it's gonna look exactly how you want it to. However, if you export this as a JPEG, all JPEGs are gonna have a white background,
Mhm.
and that's just not ideal. So again, if I switch this to JPEG and I export it, I'm not sure if you would be able to see if I pulled it up, but it would populate with a white background like this. And that's not what we want at all because that would look really weird on dark mode. So yeah, second tip would be avoid JPEGs when you can, especially for shaped images or images that have some kind of clipping mask to them.
And I would add, can I add mine?
Of course,
From
yes,
I'm not
please.
email designer, but I see this mistakes, and we spoke about it. Do not make one email as an image. So like,
Yeah.
do not, or
Mhm.
even if you slice it, try to use as much as possible live text or
Hmm.
live buttons. Do not just use like image.
Yeah.
Speaking about the slices, Kristen, is that true that when you have like a lot of sections, the email becomes super heavy in Klaviyo? Because that's
Yes.
something that I've noticed with one of our clients.
Definitely. So, some longer emails, that's something to be mindful for. This one is a good length. I'm not worried about the weight. However, if I was worried about the weight, you can see that this is broken into 4 sections. So, section 1, 2, 3, 4. And I did that to easily change the background color, but you can also change the background color within the blocks instead of within the section. So sections do make emails heavier. So anytime your email might be a little bit heavy, that's a good tip and trick, is to just minimize sections as much as possible.
Yeah.
So Kristen, it looks like there's a lot of questions. So maybe stop sharing your screen, and I'll be bringing the questions to the main screen. And so, by the way, I think how many no-nos we said?
I
3.
think we said 2 or 3. We're still
We still need to do
yeah.
2. I mean, the second one, I personally hate and do not recommend to put too many call to actions like menu style in the top of the email. So it's for
Yes.
me personally, it's a big no.
The
Mhm.
big one
And
I'm seeing, and you guys have probably seen it as well, a lot of brands, even the big one, have the elements that are unlinked. The hero image that has no links, or
Mhm.
it's just like you click on it and it's just like opens an image. It's like a big issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a great point. Let's see.
okay, so here's questions from John. What do
Hmm.
you think about using third-party tool like Stripe?
So I've never used Stripo for designing before, honestly. I do use a lot of other third-party tools for designing, so I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Andrea or Vera, I don't know if you're more familiar with Stripo.
I believe we used to have it's a Ukrainian fellow who created this tripod, Dmitry. I forgot his last name,
Mhm.
but he was on our podcast. Vera, you did interview with him. I think Stripo is more for non-designers
That's what I
to,
thought.
yeah, it's give you a lot of templates which you can modify and like
Mhm.
export and import to your exp. So I personally do not have anything against it. I'm like all for it. It just helps you to make your design process better. But since
Mhm.
we have a team of designers at Flowium, like uh, we have talents to do that.
Yeah, no, now that I understand what it is, that's totally makes sense. That's kind of similar to how some people will use Canva for email design. I
Mhm.
know back in the day, whenever I was in university, all my teachers, they really didn't like Canva because it was very basic, and they said that like it could make anyone a graphic designer, like it was a bad thing. But
Not
now,
really.
yeah, not really. You still need to have an eye for it, but
You should
Canva
see my
really,
designs, Kristen. Like, if you don't have it in you, you don't have it. Like, I,
yeah.
I, I know that it doesn't look beautiful. I hate it, but I don't know what needs to be fixed. So,
Oh, well, I'm
yeah.
always here for you if you need help. But
Thank
yeah,
you. Thank you,
so
Kristen.
third-party tools like Canva and Stripo, they have really great elements and tools in it. So I know some graphic designers will disagree with me and be like Adobe only, or you're not a graphic designer. But I don't think so. I think that we're in a day like
It's
where
like a
we have so
manual. It's like a manual
Cla-
cars, you know?
yeah,
Like,
it's Klaviyo only, or you're not email marketer.
yeah, no, but other
oh,
tools too, like the background remover and stuff like that.
No, I'm
Um,
kidding. I'm
yeah,
kidding.
when there's an easier way, why not use it? You know?
Listen, our time is like it's already 12:59 here in New York. But since we started 10 minutes late, Vera and Kristen, if you still have 10 minutes, let's go for
yeah.
another 10 minutes because
Yeah.
there's like at this moment there's 4 additional questions that I would like to
Easy.
answer. So here's a question from Ab. What elements need to be included in the welcome email? I think this is from design perspective.
Okay. So from my perspective, honestly, I put in what they tell me to, but from my experience, I can say that some really important elements in welcome emails, there's almost always going to be some kind of code or an incentive to get people to stick around. So usually a code. I like to include a CTA above the fold in a welcome email. So that way, maybe they don't have what's the word? They can't really, they don't want to read the whole email. You know, they're like, yeah, I got
Mhm.
my thing. Cool. Get out of my inbox. I really like to have CTAs and codes as high as possible in welcome emails. And then another element that I think is important is just a small snippet of kind of who they are, what they do. I know sometimes I get on late night buying trains and I don't know what I bought until the next day and I look in my email. So I don't know, a little bit about yourself and why people should stay subscribed to you past the purchase point.
And personally, me, like when I design welcome, sorry, I do not design, I don't do the design,
Mhm.
but I'm talking designing strategy. I
Yeah.
like to include lifestyle pictures. Like I want to something from like lifestyle brands, like to show their product in motions, and
Yeah.
also some kind of behind the scene, how they producing or what it was a history of this product. We work with band bridges, and I love how they
Mhm.
do that historical picture, because it's that brand is what 100 years old, and I love those welcome emails where they show like old pictures and tell the story.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Okay, so here's the next question, also from Ab. How would it be different than regular marketing email? Deal, products, announcement. Oh, I think this is in addition to the welcome
To the
question.
welcoming.
Hmm.
Yeah, Vera.
I think it's more, it's not even like as much visually as the content, because your welcome email is your first interaction with your customer, right? So you want to, in a very short form, to let them know who you are, what are your values, why you're better than everyone else. And yeah, you just want to introduce yourself to the brand. If you have the images of, I don't know, like founders or something to add that like personal touch, it's also like a great place to add those images there. So yeah, it comes down to the different content, I guess.
And we used to do this analogy a lot. It's like more like about dating. On the first date, you don't do promotions, you don't do call to actions. You're more telling
You
about
haven't
yourself.
been on the first date with my husband, Andre. You'd be surprised.
Okay, okay. Listen, I get married 11 years ago, so I'm a little bit outdated how the world in dating works now. But
Yeah,
um,
but I see what you're
what I
saying.
what I remember is not like about like selling you're selling yourself by telling like good stories, good anecdotes,
Hmm.
answering questions, asking questions,
Yeah.
maybe like send a survey. It's very simple, but then later when they know you a little bit better, then you bombard them with
Yeah.
promotions and cross sell.
Typically, we're like less salesy in the welcome email, just because the people don't know you, and typically you want to provide the value before you ask for something in exchange, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the idea behind the welcome emails.
Yeah. You're flirting,
uh,
you're not proposing.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Love that analogy.
Kristen, this is a question more for you.
Yeah.
Do you think that using GIFs on every email send minimizes the supposed impact of having GIFs in the first place?
That's a good
Cool,
question.
cool
Um,
question.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think as long as you're really thoughtful about your gifts, like you should never just make it a gift because just to make it a gift. Like there should be reasoning behind it. If you want something specific to catch their eye, if you want to lead them in a certain direction. So I don't think so. I think that gifts are a really great tool that we can use as long as you're thoughtful about it and as long as it aligns with your branding. Not all brands are gonna be gift brands. But yeah, I think that they're good.
Okay. And the last question I cannot bring it to the screen because it's from Instagram. It's how do you adapt design to dark theme on mobile? I think dark mode.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So that we went over that a little bit, but just being mindful of PNG's background colors and always using some kind of third-party tool to test it. Before I did that, I would always send it to my email and check on my phone because my phone is dark mode and it's a phone. So that's another way to check it. Let's say you don't have access to email on Acid because some contracting designers, people don't always have access to tools like that. So that would be my suggestion would be send it to your email and then also check it on your phone on dark mode. That's probably going to be the best way to check if you don't have a tool that's specifically meant for that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Um, I think we're out of questions. If there are any other questions you have, please let us know right now before we end. We still have another 6 minutes. Anything you would like to add, Vera, Kristen?
Not really, Kristen. I think you did an amazing job. Thank you so much for coming and sharing all of your knowledge with us. That was very like insightful. I learned a lot. I learned a lot. My
Awesome.
emails look ugly. The emails that I make for my personal brand, like seriously, I
No,
like
it's not. No, it's
because
not.
I like literally have like what I do right now. I just have like the image on the top, and the rest is like a simple text, specifically because I didn't realize how much work goes into that email looking good on like all of the devices. When I started testing on mobile, on desktop, I'm like, oh, forget it. Plain text only emails, way to go. But this is
You know,
for
it looks and sounds simple until you do it yourself.
exactly.
Yeah. Like most things in life, I feel like.
There's another question from Instagram. How do you improve email designs when the brand identity of the brand is kind of outdated and or badly designed?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Well,
So I will say you always have to kind of respect what your client already has going on. You could think it's the worst, most ugly branding, but you still have to do what you can with it. Like it is their company, and at the end of the day, it's their baby. So you never want to insult them, but you also just want to kind of work with what you have. And that's kind of where the creativity aspect of being a graphic designer comes in, kind of finding ways around that. But I will always suggest to talk with your client. Let's say you are like, hey, I want to try this. It seems like it might be a little off brand. Like, how do you feel about it? It's just, I don't know, my biggest piece of advice would be communication with your client about things like that, especially if they don't have a strong branding department. They might be looking towards you to kind of help them figure that out.
Yeah,
that's actually funny that you mentioned it because we have one client we work with who actually gave our email designs as reference for designers who were working on their website. And they
Oh,
were like, we want our website to be more like our email. So this is the guidelines. So sometimes
yeah.
no
So
one
you
will
can
be mad if your emails look better than your
yeah.
website. So
Yeah, you
yeah.
can influence. Yeah, this is what I meant to say. Like there were many cases where we influenced them to update their branding guide, branding book, because client
Mhm.
loved the email so much that they say, "Oh, I love it, so I need to update
Yeah.
those pieces. Can you like write down which font you use or which colors you use and so forth?"
Mhm.
Mhm.
Cool. I think there's one more question, but I don't see
Oh,
it.
that's so exciting. Like, we've never received so many questions. Kristen, what are you doing next Friday? Like, seriously.
Oh,
So here's a question. What if Vera, please read it because I'm reading that like I'm practicing reading today.
What it's question from Azealia. Thank you so much, Azealia. Your questions are on point. What if you're working on a brand that has very few photos and they can provide it in the near future? How do you go about making their emails more visually pleasing? Oof, been there, done that.
yeah, that's a great question. So we definitely run into this sometimes because that's just not always a priority for brands. As a creative, you're like, what do you mean you don't have like a folder of images? Sometimes they just don't, and you have to work with it. So we use, of course, stock imagery. So images like Shutterstock and Free Pick, a lot of the times you're able to kind of organically work products into those images. However, now you can use AI. There are so many tools out there to just make something out of nothing. That's something that we're doing for one of our new clients, Golden Hour Hemp. So we use a lot of AI for them because they just don't have a lot of lifestyle images, mostly product images, and it's worked really well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So okay, so two last questions from Kim, and we need to wrap it up. So
Yeah.
Kim asking is Vera, please.
Kim asking, do you use all the copy or do you pick and choose what to use? Not sure if
I
I.
think this is where a copywriter provides you the copy,
Mm.
the end
Oh,
Mhm.
product.
okay. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. So luckily, our
That's a good
copywriter
one.
does that. But I will say, let's say I'm designing and a word is just way too long, or like there's something that design wise would look better if, let's say, it was a couple words shorter, then I reach out to the copywriter and they can help me do that. But yeah, we leave the writing in the professional's hands. So the copywriters take care of all of that for the
Yeah,
design team.
and just Kim, to explain you, since we have typically like 5 to 6 people working on one project, it's a communication with a project manager, strategist, designer, copywriter. If it's kind of complicated, if it's something small, as Kristen said, there's a word. Of course, both of them communicate if we can replace or make it shorter. But if it's a kind of bigger issue, the strategist and strategists who originally come up with that idea of that email needs to chime in and kind of rethink
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
And there's another one from Kim.
What if the brand is product heavy, for example, promotional product company?
Yeah, we do have some clients. I can think of one in particular right now, Wiper Tech. They sell windshield wipers. They really only have pictures of their windshield wipers. So yeah, that's kind of difficult, but we've done a really good job at just making those more exciting, using AI, using GIFs, using whatever we can. We also have had clients where it's more of a service, so like laundry and stuff like that. And we just kind of utilize stock imagery the best we can.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all of the amazing questions, you guys. That was fun.
So fun.
That was fun. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you very much, and please stay tuned. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube channels, please subscribe to be up to date with this kind of lives. And we are producing videos every Thursday. And yeah, what else? What else should I promote or tell?
Nothing really. Just like stay connected, because we do put like a lot of high quality email related and e-commerce related information on all of our channels. So stay connected, and thank you for your amazing questions. You guys are the best.